it's David. Now, last time when I was working on shortening one of these, people were asking me, but can you do it when it's still got the baffle in? And the answer is yes, you can. So I've picked up another exhaust. Now, as you can see, someone stripped off the paint off this one, otherwise it's perfectly standard. It's got some corrosion in here, and I think that's why they did it. Looks like it's been sandblasted and sanded. Not really sure what's going on. Doesn't really matter. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail. You saw me doing what you need to do in order to get this apart. The difference this time is I need to drill the rivets out, which I didn't need to last time. And so I'm going to drill those out, cut it, pull this end off, and you will then see how it works with the baffle in. Now I'm going to cut it a little bit longer this time, I think. Just want to see what difference it looks like. So let's get into it. First things first, let's get this cover off. Should be two of these rubber bungs here. People always seem to get these wrong. They slide on here to stop vibration. So with the heads of the rivets drilled off, you need to actually get the rest of the rivet out. What we don't want to do is drill too much into here, because you can damage this, make the hole larger and make it harder to put back in again. Now what I sometimes find works is to get a center punch and just there we go, and it just pushes it through and leaves the rivet here. So we do that with all of them, and with those rivets punched through, this won't yet come out because it's too tight a fit. So we can move on with the cutting. As I say, I'm going to go a little bit wider this time than I did last. But the process is the same. I'm using this guard here to mark it out. Now a change on this one is I'm actually going to remove this guard. There's the two rivets on the back, but that's because this one I need to do something with. Here you can see where the sandblasting didn't reach, it's still black, so I want to just clean up these corrosion marks a bit more, so I'm going to take this off, but first I'm going to cut it. Okay, and we're through. And there we are, baffle and end cap all in one piece. Right, before we sort that out, let's just finish this off. Wow. That's straight in the bin. Okay, so now I just want to cut this down just a little bit here so that there's enough for this to slide back into the end cap properly. Right, so I'm just going to remove this, same process as before. So I've drilled out the rivets along this end as well, and now we need to try and get this off in that direction. Now this is super tight as well, so but I've got the advantage, I've got this little ridge sticking out, so when I put this on here, this cover isn't touching. So what I'm just doing is I've got a really blunted screwdriver, because you'll be very, very careful. I'm using steel on alloy, and I'm also going to have to redress this anyway, because so I can take a chance that I probably wouldn't do on a normal one. We'll get on to getting the baffle out in a minute, because I think that should be easier, because we don't really care about keeping that bit of case that runs against it. I've got some movement down here where I've already tapped, so I'm going to see if I can ease it along. So I've got to be really careful about doing this, because I don't want to damage the end here, although I will have to reseal it anyway, which will probably hide some of the damage. Alright, now it's coming. There we go. It's starting to pull away now. So need to get it coming away evenly. It's coming away more here than it is here, so that's more like it. In truth, I probably don't need to take this off for doing what I want to do to it, which is just to clean this up and maybe paint it again or leave it polished. I'm not really sure which I'm doing at the moment. All I needed to do was remove the rivets so that the rivets wouldn't get in the way. Okay, so there we go. So that's obviously how it's done in the factory, is that the insulation is put in and then this is slipped over the top carefully. So I'm just going to get rid of all the remaining bits of rivet because they will just be in the way for when I want to put this back together. Okay, let's put this aside for the moment and let's come to the perhaps the most interesting part, which is repeating this process on the other end. So just working my way along, pushing the seal out of the way. So I've got the blade on the end of the alloy. There we go, and it is really starting to separate away now, but I don't want to kink it at too much an angle. I want it to come out straight. There we are. So, end cap with baffle intact. Now, as I said, this is really wet inside, and I'm sure it's where it was media blasted, and obviously it was done with a wet media, I'm guessing. It's no big deal for an exhaust because the first time you start the bike up, all of this will just dry straight out, so it's no big deal. But I'm just going to clean this up with a brush, get all the rubbish out, and from here you could skip back to the other video where it's just straight to the installation. But I'm going to carry on prepping the new part. We can just put this back together and we'll be good to go. And this one looks like it's going to go back a bit easier than my other one did. Jumping ahead on this, so I've taken this off, I've cleaned up this, and what I found was that along here where the corrosion was, it's actually eaten all the way through the side of the exhaust. So this exhaust is scrap. What I think has happened is, I'm pretty sure someone water blasted this with a wet media. As a result, the inside of the exhaust got wet. They then left it sitting down like that, and the water was just pooled underneath, and it's just eaten through the alloy over time. Now, if they'd have just taken that exhaust, stuck it on the bike, and taken it for a good long ride, all of this would have dried out, and it would have been no problem at all. But as a result, scrap. And it's the same thing, you know, if you're washing your bike and you get water down the end of your exhaust, and then you just go off and leave it, well, this is going to be wet and it will eat through. So from experience now, I would say you want to do that. Now, for a bit of fun, what I've done is I've put a bit of wrap over this. It's possible to repair it, I think, if you had JB Weld or something on the inside and then you repainted it, but it's a bit of a test bed. Now I know this is a scrap exhaust. So I'm going to put this wrap on it. I don't imagine it's going to last. I think this is the hot-ended exhaust, and I think it will melt the wrap at this end, but I've got nothing to lose. So we'll see how this goes. So this still got the baffle in it. So we can now put it back in. So I've just put it back in like this, tapped it in a little bit. I've had to bend down these edges as I did on the previous exhaust. Anyway, so I've squished those flanges back in. Not a lot, just enough that it is possible to actually just hammer this back in. So I've lined it up. I've marked where I need to drill holes. I should have done this before I put the wrap on, but it is what it is. So I'm going to now drill these holes out here, and then I'm going to put this back in and rivet it back on. And then, once I've also riveted on the hanger, we'll see how it goes on the bike. So with the holes drilled, they will need some modification when we come to put the rivets in, I'm sure. We can ease this back in. You want to try and get it in as straight as possible. You want something that's not going to damage the face of this. So that's all started. So that's looking good. The process of putting this back end in here is exactly the same. See the gap closing up nicely. Don't overdo it because you will expand out this alloy. It is only alloy, it's very thin. If you wedge this in, you can wedge it in too far and then it will look rubbish. So that looks about right. Just a little more easing here and there. Just be careful, as I say, not to overdo it. So then we can test with our rivets just to see if they go in, and if they won't, like that one won't, because I've drilled this hole slightly off. We can just correct it with the drill. Don't go overboard. Now I've used as small a drill bit as I could get away with, which has because I want these rivets to be as tight a fit as I can make them. So there's bound to be some small discrepancies in the fit. Okay, so now just clean up and we'll get the rivets in. As with the stock, I'm using a little rubber washer to go on the rivet. Oh, that doesn't want to go in now. So there we go. Now I'm using a big riveter here because these are quite tough rivets, but you can do it with a smaller handheld one. There we go. So I'll work my way around. A big scratch in the top of my vinyl already. Okay, we're not quite done because we need to get, although these are all in now, we need to get the hanger on. So there we are. This is our new exhaust. Slightly less stubby than the previous one, but still with full baffle in. So let's get this set up on the bike and see what it looks like. Lots of you ask, can you stubby the stock exhaust and leave the baffle in? And the answer is a very clear yes, absolutely you can. Sound is still good. It's a little bit sharper in my opinion. When you've debaffled, it's a deeper note that you get from the exhaust. This is actually quite a sharp noise, and but bear in mind, my bike has been decatted, so it's much louder than a stock exhaust would ever be, even debaffled and stubbied. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it because it was a lot of fun to do, even if I have discovered this exhaust is scrap. But it was great and I'm glad to have shared it with you. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this was useful or fun and you would like to see more. So, and don't forget to click the notification bell if you indeed want to see more. So I will see you soon.